Hi guys, we've got to topic 5, market equilibrium. You can see on your screens quite a trendy looking demand and supply curve, and the fact that we've got demand and supply on the same curve means we've now got a market, certainly because the two intersect. So in terms of this, what is a market? Remind yourselves, it's a place where consumers and producers meet to exchange goods and services. Consumers are on the diagram, they're demanding goods. Firms, on the other hand, supply goods. Price always on your vertical axis, and it should now read quantity exchanged, or the amount of goods and services exchanged on our horizontal axis. We are now in a market situation. Okay, in terms of learning objectives, the things that you should be able to do, we must be able to define the term equilibrium, identify equilibrium on a market diagram, explain the impacts of shifts in demand and also shifts in supply on equilibrium price and output. Okay, in addition to that, we're going to start to get to a situation where we can look at different scenarios. We get given data and we're going to have to be able to identify what's happened and then draw our own diagrams and analyze the impact on price and output from those different scenarios. Okay, to understand equilibrium, okay, just very quickly, I will pause the video in a little while, but using your own general knowledge, what do you understand by the term equilibrium? Write down as many ideas as you can. You have 30 seconds. What do we mean by the term equilibrium? Okay, you should have had enough time, and Mr. Dooley should have got some answers from you. In terms of what we're actually looking at, these are the sorts of terms that people often come up with. Something is stable or balanced, it doesn't move, it's equal. And I want you to think of a marble, and I want you to think of it on a desk in college, and that marble on a perfectly flat desk, you place it and so it doesn't move, and that marble will stay there forever. Okay, it will not move unless something touches it. Okay, it is in equilibrium, it is stable. Okay, and that's what we mean by an equilibrium situation. Okay, so when we apply this to a market, okay, the place is going to occur where demand is equal to supply. In this instance, at a price PE and a quantity traded. I've stolen that from Tutor to You. That should actually say quantity traded of wheat. Okay, QE. So there's no excess demand or excess supply, which we'll come across those terms in a moment. Okay, so where we have equilibrium, that's that state of balance, okay, where demand and supply intersect. At any other point, we will be in a situation of disequilibrium. Okay, big exam tip, big exam gold. Okay, most questions in the exam that involve demand and supply, and you will get at least a couple, okay, are going to give you a scenario. There's going to be an event or possibly more than one event that causes either the demand or the supply curve or both to shift. Okay, and you will then be expected to find and analyze the new equilibrium. So the skills in this lesson are very important. Pay close attention. Okay, in this situation, and you guys have got this quite high up on page 37, you should have highlighted the definition, but now I want you to focus on this particular diagram, and where you look at where demand and supply intersect. Okay, it's at a price P1, that's the equilibrium point, with the amount exchanged Q1. Now it's also known as a market clearing point. You can see the two lines just drop down at the bottom, and Q2, Q3. Now, in terms of how much is demanded, if you read across at a price P2, P2, read all the way vertically across to the demand curve, you will find that Q3 is demanded. How much is supplied, read across, from P2, wait till you see it intersects the supply curve, and Q2 is supplied. That means demand is greater than supply by the amount Q2, Q3. There is excess demand or a shortage. More consumers want to buy this good at a price P2 than firms who want to supply it. Now that is important. So in terms of excess demand, how would you see that physically in the shops? Well, shelves would empty very quickly. Very important. What pressure would be put on price? Well, if things are leaving the shelves very quickly, well, clearly firms could charge more. So there will be an upward pressure on price. You can see the arrow from P2 to P1 on the diagram. How long will prices rise for? And the answer is until the market clears, until we get to the equilibrium point at OP1, because how much is demanded at OP1? It'll be Q1, and how much is supplied at P1? Q1. So the market will be in equilibrium. We will go back to that state of rest. Just to prove the point, you can see that bouncing P4 comes in. Well, at a higher price, i.e. above P2, but below the equilibrium, what exists? Well, you should be able to read across and see that demand is still higher than supply. There's still excess demand. It might not be as much excess demand as at P2, but shelves are still emptying too quickly. Consumers still want to buy more than firms want to sell at that price, and so upward pressure continues on price until the market clears at P1. Let's push on. Now, just dropping, if you guys have a look at P3, I'm just going to drop two lines down, and you can see them there, and at the bottom, Q4 and Q5. Now, I should have mentioned you guys need to draw those. You will have drawn them, because I would have stopped the video a little while ago and told you to draw Q2 and Q3 in. If Q4 and Q2 are in similar places, don't worry, still call it Q2. And for supply, that will be a different line, Q5. So in terms of this, at a price P3, i.e. when above equilibrium, how much is supplied? Q5. How much is demanded? Read across to the demand curve, Q4. This time, which one is greater? Supply, is greater than demand by the amount Q4, Q5. Excess supply or a surplus exists in this market. So how would we see this? Well, firms are supplying Q5, but actually consumers only want to buy Q4. So full shelves, they don't empty. They certainly don't empty quickly. What pressure would be put on price? Well, we've got unsold goods, unsold stocks. So this is normally what we would see in the January sales, the summer sales, and so on. Pressure comes downward on price in order to sell those goods. And how long will prices fall for? Well, there will be excess supply all the way through until P1, the market clearing point, where demand is equal to supply out equilibrium. Just bouncing in, let me do that again. P5 bouncing in. If the price only fell as far as P5, what actually would happen? Well, if you have a read across, which is the greater one, supply or demand at a price P5, it would still be supply. So excess supply still exists. And so there would still be downward pressure until the market actually clears. I hope that's clear. It's a very, very important set of principles there. In your notes, bottom of page 37, you guys have got what we would call a demand and supply function. Okay, so the information in the middle column, quantity demanded against the price, that's your demand function, and on the right hand column, supply against price, again, that's your supply function. Okay, now you guys could be given data like this within the exam. Okay, if you're given data like this within the exam, obviously you need to interpret this information and be able to analyze what happens next potentially. So let's have a little look. In the scenario, there's a football club that's got a stadium capacity of 8,000 seats, probably something like Newport County. Okay, quite small, Rodney Parade, and it's estimated the level of demand at different ticket prices. Okay, now in terms of supply, well, capacity is 8,000, so that will always be 8,000. So in terms of at different prices from £20 through to £12, you can see the amount demanded. At £20, 6,000 would be demanded and 8,000 supplied, so there would be 2,000 empty seats. Okay, at £18, the price falls, more people would demand it. At £16, okay, demand is equal to supply. There's our equilibrium. Okay, £16 where the two are equal. At £14, more people would demand tickets than actually there are tickets. Okay, so there would be excess demand. Okay, which would put upward pressure on price. Okay, and so on. So just looking for where the two are the same, where demand is equal to supply, that will be our equilibrium, and it's important that you guys understand that. Okay, we're going to watch this video afterwards, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and what he can tell us about economics. Okay, shifting on page 38. Okay, we're going to look at some different scenarios. The first one is what happens when there's an increase in demand. Now, when there's an increase in demand, I want you guys just to have a look at what happens. Okay, so we'll take our initial equilibrium where demand and supply is the same, okay, at a price PE and quantity traded QE. And when there's an outward shift in demand, an increase in demand, maybe it's been caused by an increase in income, if this is a normal good, okay, and as a result of this, where does the new demand curve and where does the new demand curve intersect the supply curve? It's at this point here, if I call this point B, and the original equilibrium point A. Okay, so what has happened? Well, excess demand has occurred and it's put upward pressure on price because there's been more demand, more will be traded, so there's an increase in the amount traded from QE to Q2 and an increase in market price, in this instance of coffee, from PE to P2. Okay, very quickly have a look, and if you guys could highlight the key skills. This is your exemplar as we go through this. If you could circle number one, what happened in this market? A cut in income tax leads to an increase in the demand for coffee. 2, this is shown as a shift to the right of the demand curve from MD market demand curve 1 to MD2, as consumers have an increase in disposable income and can afford to buy more coffee. This creates excess demand at PE, and just in terms of this, I don't want to go into too much detail here, but the excess demand exists where I've just drawn that arrow. Okay, so demand increased, okay, but there's not enough to go around. We'll find out later about why that causes upward pressure on price, okay, which it does, but what you've got to look for is it puts upward pressure on price until the new market equilibrium price is reached at P2 and the quantity traded rises from QE to Q2. Okay, that is your exemplar, guys, and that's the standard to which you should be writing, okay, following our skills tips. Okay, over the page. Okay, before I push on, you guys have got some information at the top of page 39 of why the demand curve might shift outwards. Okay, so these things